the repeated dismissal of the claims of serious human rights violations as fabrications, coupled with the failure to allow our independent monitors access to the worst affected areas in northern Rakhine, is highly insulting to the victims and an abdication of the government's obligations under international human rights law.
Provided at the collection point.
The High Commissioner unequivocally condemns the attacks on the border posts, the border police posts on the 9th of October by armed assailants, as well as the killing of a senior army officer on November the 12th. Now, these are serious crimes for which, of course, the individual perpetrators and their masterminds must be brought to account with full respect for due process. The Commissioner urges the government of Myanmar to choose a different path, one where political and military leaders join forces to ensure that people from various communities, that the state will work to ensure their rights and needs are protected, that it hears the grievances and will work with the affected communities to address them, that where there are claims of human rights violations, these will be independently investigated, and that the perpetrators, no matter who they are, will be held accountable.
At 11:30, the Secretary General will hold his final press conference of the year and of his mandate. Halas. Yes, sir.
I'll ask you about Burundi. It's been yesterday. You'd said that under that note verbal, the UN is watching the country. There are reports overnight of searches of the homes of diplomats, and it's, at least in one account, it says UN functionaries. So I wanted to know: is the UN aware of these searches by the government? Also, of a statement in the Fifth Committee this morning by Burundi that they are opposed to the deployment of any of the special advisors' team to any provinces beyond the capital. Does that fall into the quack?
I have not seen personally the reports that you mentioned out of Burundi. I will ask our colleagues on the ground. And as I said yesterday, we're obviously monitoring the actions of Burundi, and a decision will be taken accordingly.
But so the flights that were listed on the memo that was leaked have already taken place? The actual...
I'm not aware of the memo that was leaked. I'm just trying to answer your question.
Can you get an update on the actual...
I will try to get as much of an update as I can.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, I have a couple more, but I want to make sure to ask this one, because before... I wanted to ask you, I guess, whether the Ethics Office has signed off on the Secretary General appearing for talks for which $1,200 are charged. And I'm asking this is going to take place tomorrow, and I'm asking it not on my behalf, but I know journalists that want to or are required by their employers to cover it, and they were told they have to pay that amount to cover it. So I wanted to know, it seems like a strange practice. I know he's giving a free speech in Southern Illinois University next week, but what are the ethics, or in terms of UN ethics, not moral ethics?
The Yunka dinner is a long-standing tradition to which you participated at the highest levels on a number of occasions in the same format. It's a tradition, and a tradition that will go on.
And
Thank
he doesn't
you.
have any, there's no provision, for example, for Korean media to cover it without joining the group?
They wanted to go to Detroit, Michigan. It was really not an attractive place to go. Third class city, I mean, like, it's not the kind of city you would want to go to, right? Like, Detroit is not a very attractive city. What's that? It's a flyover city. I'm still baffled as to how Donald Trump won, but that's besides the point.
Question for Ms. Gayach, if you can give some update on, I see it as a New York issue, this Englap Singh bribery case that's pending in the Southern District of New York, here in New York. It's another aspect of contracting at the UN, but it hasn't been resolved. It's going to trial in January. A superseding indictment was filed that says that this South-South News entity was a bribery conduit. This is a word used by Preet Bharara. So I'm wondering, Ms. Gayach, since I've asked you about this previously and your response was to evict the press that asked and to leave South-South News in the House, now that the superseding indictment has been filed, what do you think? Has your thinking changed? Thank you.
And on the latest case that you mentioned, I don't have any update, but I'm ready to learn with my colleagues from OLA and others. If there is anything, I'll be absolutely ready to share it with you. Thank you. Other questions?
Yeah.
Sure. I wanted to ask you something that I'd asked you November 25th and again earlier this week in connection, or in an email about also the Mali picture, has to do with the reported killing of an IDP civilian in Bambari and CAR by a peacekeeper from Mauritania. There are also some other, like 5 questions that were asked on the 25th, none of which have been answered. But on this, so I want to ask, on I was told that there was some investigation. I'm just wondering, how long does it take to determine whether the peacekeeper fired the bullet and whether it was responsible and what was done on? And 2, on the other questions, is there some, when are those questions going to be answered? Some of them are just very simple questions about use of UN money. Is there some problem with answering them?
Regarding that, some emailed questions sometimes take their own pace. Some of them I know. One of them was, I believe, an attack on one of your reporter colleagues. I don't believe that is going to be answered. We don't try to honor when one reporter
The question
tries to attack
was,
another
what is the
reporter.
waiting list for office space, and what was the list at the time that Christina Gayach decided to evict Intercity Press and put in a person who doesn't come? So you can call it an attack, but you should have a rule.
the reporter you're talking
about.
the reporter you're talking about does in fact come. I'm sure your fellow reporters in this room appreciate
so what
the
about
fact.
the use of UN funds to travel? I mean, if you wanted, that's fine. If you like, you could have just answered the question in writing, and then it wouldn't be discussed here.
Stefan, please stop talking over me. Has answered the question about the travel.
He said everything was inappropriate. So I said,
Yes.
let's give a list of the trips in the last year. It's very simple. Like,
No,
it's not your money. It's public money.
No, Matthew. Stefan has answered that question. That trip has been dealt with and has been handled in the appropriate manner. Regarding reporters, you are not the hall monitor of reporters, and you don't get
Does
to judge.
DPI have a
and
list?
You don't get to judge.
Good.
You do not get to judge whether your colleagues attend these briefings enough or not.
Does DPI have a list of people waiting so that it's not given out to reward those who ask no questions?
If you have any
Very
issues
simple.
about accreditation, take this up with my colleagues in media accreditation.
What about OPM?
Have a good afternoon.
What about the contracting in Burundi? Like, you don't answer the questions, and then you come and you misuse your podium. No, you don't.